the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this January 5th, 2026. We made it to 2026. Happy New Year to everybody. And yeah, it's an exciting year already. 5 days in. And things are exciting in Venezuela and now and in Iran now for 9 days straight of demonstrations, and of course things are not slowing down here inside the United States. We'll talk about that, and yeah, exciting stuff. All right, we're gonna get started with Iran, and then we'll talk about Venezuela and everything going on with Maduro and the Venezuelan regime and the Trump administration's attempt to control of Venezuela without troops on the ground. We'll see how that goes, and we'll talk about some other stuff after that. Those will be the two bulky main stories. Don't forget, you can participate in the show by asking questions and thus dictating what I talk about. So ask questions, and yeah, like anonymous user has a question about the stock market today. Well, that's a great question to put in a super chat and ask me, and I will answer it. I will. I answer all the questions in the super chat, all of them. So, anonymous user, anything from $2 to $500, and you can get a question answered. So please use the super chat feature to ask questions about what is going on. The stock market is up quite a bit today. So yeah, I'm really good at giving explanations on the day-to-day movements of stock markets, so stock prices. So, bank stocks up, huge amount. All right. Yes, ask and I shall answer is the story. Let's see. Let's start with Iran. So demonstrations continue in Iran. If anything, they really do seem to be intensifying, and all over Iran now. There are reports now of protests in over 108 towns and cities across Iran. Now, this is a challenge for the regime to have the kind of troops and people to be able to suppress all these demonstrations all over the country. Now, of course, if they do a oppressive enough job in Tehran, that'll send a signal, and it'll die out. This revolution will be won or lost in the streets of Tehran at the end of the day, with other cities basically falling in line with whatever happens there. There are all kinds of stories out there that basically are claiming that demonstrators have taken control over certain cities, including, shockingly, if this was true, I don't know if it's true, the city of Qom. Qom is not that far from Tehran, but Qom is a major city, but it's primarily known as kind of the spiritual home of the Islamic Revolution. This is where the big madrasas, the schools, where the mullahs sit, where much of the religious authority comes from. Political authority, Tehran, religious authority really comes out of Qom. The idea that Qom would fall to these demonstrators would be quite shocking if it's indeed the case. But you have to be careful of these kind of claims. There's a lot of claims out there. But what we really do not know, fog of war, all of that is all true. The protesters the protests generally are getting more violent. Both on the side of demonstrators. In some cities, demonstrators have got their hands on weapons and using them. There are a number of videos online showing demonstrators actually ambushing security forces, beating them up, and taking their weapons. and that's how they are gaining weapons. So that is happening. Security forces are also starting to shoot at demonstrators, and I expect that part of it to get worse in the days to come. I expect the security forces to get more brutal as we move forward. In past demonstrations, in past years, hundreds and in some thousands of people were slaughtered by the regime as part of suppressing the demonstrations, and then many thousands were slaughtered afterwards in kangaroo courts and trials where they all received the death penalties after the demonstrations were subdued. So I expect more violence, significantly more violence in Iran in the days to come. We still haven't seen what I think is going to be necessary for this to turn into a revolution that actually is successful, that actually overturns this regime and gets rid of the mullahs. For that, I've stated now for several years that you would need one of the military factions, some of the military units, probably within the army, not the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, who are loyalists, not within these. I can't even pronounce their name. These internal security forces. I think it's going to have to be from the regular army. That is, somebody in the regular army has to turn. Somebody in the regular army has to be willing to take their troops and side with the protesters. And to be successful, it's going to have to come from pretty high up. Now, it could be individual soldiers leaving their posts and joining the demonstrators. But ultimately, for this to be successful, it probably has to be people in senior positions. I mean, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard and the other forces that the regime has at their disposal have a lot of weapons. They are brutal, and it's going to have to be something of equivalent size to compete with them. So that has not happened yet. Of course, when that happens, I think it'll be a very fast domino effect. I think once the army turns against the regime, or when elements within the army turn against the regime, I really think the regime will collapse. I don't think it's sustainable. But we don't know whether that'll happen. My guess is, again, no inside information here, my guess is that is what the son of the Shah, who's in the United States, is working on, is trying to communicate with military officers who might not be that supportive of the regime in an effort to try to get them to turn. Most of them, though, are afraid, they're cowards, and they're not sure they can be successful. At some point, this will tilt. There'll be a tipping point. We won't know when the tipping point happens until after it's happened. But once it's happened, things will go, I think, pretty fast. Indeed, the Times of London today has a detailed story that basically lays out Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei's plan to flee Tehran if it looks like his security forces cannot quell the civil unrest. Once they stop following orders, or once the military flips on him, he's out of there. And supposedly there is a detailed plan for him and up to 20 aides and families to get on an airplane and fly to Moscow to join there his friend, not really, but his associate, Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian dictator, who fled there in 2024 from Damascus and went to Moscow. Supposedly Khamenei, in planning his escape, would gather, this is from the story, would gather assets, properties abroad, and cash to facilitate their safe passage. As I've told you in the past, the Iranian elite of this regime have assets all over the world. They are particularly invested in Canada, a strong presence in Toronto, Canada. So if this regime falls, I wouldn't be surprised to find some of the generals and the mullahs and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard officers roaming the streets of Toronto. So beware, be careful. They have smuggled money out. They have been stealing from the Iranian people for decades and funneling money into all kinds of assets and all kinds of properties and bank accounts all over the world. They have always been ready to escape, and here they are. They are indeed ready to escape. So according to Times, these plans are in motion. He's not ready to leave yet because, as I said, the army really hasn't turned on him yet. But he is definitely ready for that outcome and prepared for it. On betting markets right now, as of a few days ago, the odds of Khamenei being outed as supreme leader by December 31st, 2026. As of, I'd say, December was around 30%, maybe 31, 32%, maybe up to 33% in some periods, but basically down there. As of today, I think it's today. It's not clear exactly what the date is. It might be yesterday. Those odds are up above 42%. So dramatic increase in the odds that Khamenei will not be there by the end of 2026. I mean, look, I fear that it's either going to happen now or it's not going to happen. That is, if you could kind of play this kind of a hedging, not a hedging game, but if there were odds on what would happen by the end of this month, I think it either happens by the end of this month or it doesn't happen. Although he could die and he could be replaced in other means, but this particular by revolution that replaces this regime, not just him, but this regime, it's going to be now. This is the best chance the Iranian people have had. Israel set them up for this. I mean, the Gulf Revolution set them up. Israel then really showed the weakness of this regime and weakened it further because Israel killed hundreds, maybe thousands of the regime operatives that would have been used to suppress these riots. And this is it. I really do think it's now, not never, but now or a long, long time from now. Now is the time. Now's the time to do it. Again, news reports are that riots continue to escalate in cities across Iran. The capital of Tehran, where demonstrators have now armed themselves, according to some reports, with rifles and other weapons. Minor clashes with Iranian security forces in Tehran. We will see how this all plays out. Of course, the big question at this point is, does Israel or does the Trump administration do something here? The Islamic regime is clearly concerned that Israel and or the United States are going to engage in military action against Iran. The military action against Venezuela has made them even more afraid. They now fear that Trump might have this aggressive foreign policy and is willing to use force. There's also significant movement of U.S. military assets, primarily airplanes, including Delta Force, a plane out of the Delta Force base that actually executed the mission in Venezuela. One of those, a plane, who knows who's on it, but assuming a Delta Force is on it, has landed in Europe. A number of other cargo planes, large military cargo planes, fuel tankers, and fighter jets are basically on the way or already arrived in Europe. We haven't seen this amount of movement of assets, military assets, Air Force assets, really since the 12-Day War. So there is some reason to believe that the U.S. is considering some kind of military action, or at least upping the pressure on the Iranians by putting assets around them and maybe what the U.S. is doing is through back channels telling the Iranians, all right, Khamenei, this is what they did with Maduro after all. Okay, Khamenei, you can leave. We'll let you leave. Safe passage to Moscow. But we will not provide that safe passage forever. And if you wait for too long, you will suffer the consequences. We have the assets in the region. We can deploy them. And you won't survive. Indeed, President Trump has issued a second warning to Iran yesterday, I guess, or this morning. He said the regime would be hit very hard if its forces kill protesters. Now, as I said, protesters are already being killed. Well, it's still in the kind of couple of dozen probably, so it hasn't reached huge numbers, but it's there. There's no question that these forces are being killed. Trump said this while answering a question on Air Force One. Let's see. In addition, Israel. Let me just see. I'm not sure that's a correct report. Israel has stated that there are rumors out of Israel that Israel is preparing an attack on Iran. They've actually got a name for it and everything. Indeed, opposition leaders in Israel are telling Netanyahu that if he launches an attack on Iran, he will have the full support of the opposition. So opposition leaders, kind of quote the left, supposedly it's not really a left, opposition leaders in Israel are urging Netanyahu to go after the Iranians, encouraging him, if he doesn't have Trump's support, to go back to Washington to get it, and saying that they have his back. That is, they hate him on everything else. They want to get rid of him. They want an election. They're fighting him tooth and nail over other issues in Parliament right now as we speak. And at the same time, they've issued declarations that Israel needs to attack Iran, and if the Prime Minister would get complete support from the opposition if they do engage in an attack on Iran. So it does look likely again that Israel is at least preparing something. Now, again, this could be all more psychological than real, in a sense that this could be part of a psychological campaign to try to convince Khamenei to just leave. And this is just bluffing, as they say in poker, in order to get him to leave. We will see. Again, we'll find out in the days to come. Indeed, one of the opposition leaders in a announcement said that this is a kind of a once in a who knows lifetime opportunity. The people in the streets. We need a tipping point. We need something to tip this. We need something to get them. Now, some people are arguing that if Israel and the United States intervene, that'll raise patriotic sentiments against Israel and Iran and in favor of the regime. But that didn't happen during the 12-day war. And it's not clear that it will happen now. If Israel and the United States carefully target regime targets, they could take out Khamenei. They could take him out. They could kill him. They could destroy whatever forces are left for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. They could take out their bases. They could do the kind of stuff that would reduce the ability of the regime to suppress these riots, and at the same time convey clearly to the rioters that Israel and the United States support what they're trying to do. That would, I think, topple the regime. It would be the tipping point. It would be what ultimately destroys the Iranian regime. Again, I've said this many times over the last few months, really over the last few decades. The fall of the Iranian regime will be the most significant geopolitical event easily since the fall of the Berlin Wall. And in a sense, it would surpass the fall of the Berlin Wall, because the fall of the Berlin Wall at some point was basically inevitable. Russia was no longer, the Soviet Union was no longer a threat to the United States. Once the opening started happening, it was clear there was only one direction that could go. This really could be the most important geopolitical event maybe since the building of the Berlin Wall, since the Cold War started. And it would be immensely positive. It would completely reorient the Middle East, completely change the dynamics in the Middle East. A pro-Western Iran would change the dynamics of the oil market. It would immediately open up one of the largest, free up massive quantities of oil into the market. It would, open up one of the largest oil reserves in the world for future development, and it would take away the number one enemy that Israel has in the Middle East. It would take really the number one enemy Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have in the region. It would immediately take away the ally of Hezbollah. Hezbollah would collapse. The Lebanese army could then really take over Hezbollah and dismantle it. It would take all support from the Houthis away. The Houthis might collapse or at least be weakened dramatically and not want to create any more problems. I mean, I cannot think of it would put the, as I said, when did I do the show in Maduro? On Saturday. It would put the Chinese on notice, because now the Chinese would have no way to buy oil from, particularly if Trump follows through on this idea that the United States will control the oil in Venezuela. I'm not sure he can and will, but if he does, then you've taken out Venezuela as a source of oil for China. You've taken out Iran as a source of oil from China. All they have is Russia. Now, they can buy oil on the global market, and they do, and oil will be cheap, and that'll be good for them. But they have to consider that in a war with Taiwan, the West will embargo them. The West will cut off their oil supply. The United States will cut off their oil supply, including Iran and Venezuela. And that, I think, reduces the probability of invading Taiwan dramatically. So even from the perspective of China, Taiwan, the potential of war in the Western Pacific, in Southeast Asia, even from that perspective, Iran is huge, huge. Now, add to that the fact that Iran is a massive, ally of Russia, supplying it with drones and drone technology, and that goes away, and it weakens Putin. So it's an unequivocal good. I mean, Israel and Iran would establish relationships. The Shah of Iran has already said so. Imagine diplomatic relationship between the Iranians and Israelis, and the potential that have. Iran could become imagine if Iran stops building weapons and nuclear weapons and oppressing its people and establishes some kind of a free society. Imagine how wealthy this country could become. It not only does it have oil, but it has incredible people, entrepreneurial and creative, who've done very, very well in the rest of the world. There is a Iranian diaspora that is incredibly wealthy that would go back and send money. I mean, it would be a flourishing, successful place. And I'd say there was one conflict in the world in which, if Israel and the United States could intervene and tip it towards resolution, and they should, this is it. More important than Ukraine, more important than Venezuela, more important than Cuba, more important than anywhere. Right now, it's Iran, and the easiest one, in a sense, because it doesn't require occupation. It doesn't require much. The people expressing themselves, they want Khamenei dead. They yell, death to Khamenei, death to the dictator. They're yelling this in the streets. You could imagine Khamenei either killed or flown off to Russia, and the Shah coming back, setting up an interim government, and within 6 months you have elections in Iran. I mean, that changes the world. Not like laissez-faire capitalism would, but it changes the world, and it buys all of us who value Western civilization. It buys us time. It weakens the Islamists in Europe. It makes them less passionate, confident, because it takes out the one country ruled by Sharia law. It takes them out. So the various factions in Europe become weaker. The funding for them, much of it goes away. The Iranian funding goes away. We can now focus all our attention on Qatar and getting them to stop the funding and crushing the Muslim Brotherhood. And that's it. And it's over. And the threat of Islam, the threat of Islamism, which is the real threat of Islam, is gone. It doesn't take that much. That's my whole point about Islam doesn't have to be a threat, is that it doesn't take that much because they are weak. And imagine, you know, all these people yelling for Sharia law, and then the one country that has Sharia law, that Sharia law is overturned, is trashed by its own people, by the people living under that Sharia law. So how great could Sharia law be? So hugely powerful message if this actually happens. So let us. We can't pray. I don't pray anyway. You guys maybe can pray. It doesn't help. We can hope. That doesn't help either. We can send our best wishes. We can encourage our politicians to do something. Certainly, Israel should do something. It has a direct, immediate interest in doing so. We should retweet the videos. We should encourage public support for the brave. Oh, and I should end on this. The segment I should end on this. I mean, the people of Iran, the people out going into the streets, the men, women, and young girls and people from all walks of life now. I mean, this really has become broad. It started with shopkeepers, and now it's students and everybody in the middle. It's the middle class. It's the working classes. They're all out there in the streets, and it takes a huge amount of courage. It takes a huge amount of courage. They know what the fate is. They know what the regime has done in the past. They know what this regime is capable of doing. The regime advertises it by hanging people from cranes in the middle of Tehran. Everybody knows how this regime deals with its opponents. They kill them. They slaughter them. And if this doesn't succeed, they'll come after many of these people. Now, there is safety in numbers. And the more people out in the streets, the more likely it is to succeed. The more people out in the streets, the less likely it is that any one of them, any particular one of them, gets in trouble. And they need to sustain the numbers. But it's incredibly brave of these people. Their courage cannot be, you can't overestimate how courageous this is. You remember the Girls' Revolution? I think that's what's more courageous, particularly because they were all women. But this is the inevitable, the inevitable sequel to that Girls' Revolution. And I salute the Iranian people, those who are out in the streets, and those who are sitting in their homes, twiddling their thumbs, should be ashamed and embarrassed. Get some balls and go out there, join your fellow Iranians, demonstrate and bring about the end of this regime. It's about time that this regime is shut down. Shut down, closed off, and the Iranian people are free. And Iran could be a kind of a liberal-style, relatively free place. I mean, there's no laissez-faire capitalism anywhere in the world, but the West is a pretty free place. So this could be like any other Western country, without a king and without a supreme leader. A kind of Western democracy that I think the Iranian people would benefit enormously from, and as I said, the rest of the world would too. All right, let us turn now to kind of the hot story in the news everywhere, and that is Venezuela. I led with Iran because I think ultimately it's more important. Plus, what's going on in Venezuela is really just, it really is I think the technical term is a shit show. I think that's the technical term. So on the show on Saturday, I said, kind of as a joke, well, not really as a joke, because I believed this, but you know, I didn't know that anybody would ever support this. I said something like the reason Donald Trump dismissed the Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado as the person to replace Maduro. You know, remember he said, you know, she didn't have enough support among the Venezuelan people, even though she won the election and all of the, or her, you know, the guy she nominated won it. But really, she has a huge amount of support within Venezuela. Why did Trump diss her the way he did? I mean, he really just dismissed her. And I said that the reason he did it was because he's pissed off that she got the Nobel Prize and he didn't. And this is typical Trump narcissism, not strategic thinking, but completely narcissistic emotionalism, which is typical of Trump. And I said, that's what that's what motivated Trump to do it. Well, according to the Washington Post, now granted, it's the Washington Post, according to the Washington Post, two people close to the White House said that Machado's acceptance of the prize, the fact that she was willing to accept the prize, she didn't decline it, was an ultimate sin to the President Trump. Despite the fact that she dedicated the award to Trump and time again complimented him about his work in Venezuela. But what Trump really wanted, what he really wanted, and what would have made her the next leader of Venezuela, is if she just turned it down and said, I can't accept it because it's Donald Trump's, then she would have been it. So, unsurprising, unshocking at all. I mean, again, as some people are claiming, the greatest president in American history is completely driven by his narcissistic emotions, by his sense of being offended, by who insulted him and who does he feel offended him. Remember, I mean, even if she turned it down, it wouldn't be Donald Trump's. The committee would have given it to somebody else. They had no intention of giving it to Trump. So, Jennifer says, as a 5-year-old, yeah, we're governed by a 5-year-old. I know some of you are offended when I say that. I know that. But not only does he have a 5-year-old understanding of economics, he's also behaves emotionally like a 5-year-old. All right. Okay. So I just want to put that aside. I thought it was funny, and I was right. I was right, at least according to two sources close to the White House. But of course, the more interesting story. And the more troubling story is okay, what is going to happen with Venezuela? Because what really seems clear is that this administration has no plan for the day after. You'd think you'd learn from Iraq. So they got rid of Maduro. The vice president of Maduro's government is now president of Venezuela. By all accounts, she is as authoritarian, as brutal, as ideologically committed to statism and to an anti-American agenda as Maduro ever was. She's a nasty human being from everything I can see. And she is now the dictator of Venezuela. She now runs the government. The entire government is intact. All the generals running the security forces, all the people super loyal to the regime, all the people who've oppressed their own people. Indeed, stories are that right now, on Saturday, there were stories that people were celebrating in Caracas the fall of Maduro. Well, the stories are that yesterday and today, the streets are empty. Nobody's going to work. Nobody's leaving home. Because troops loyal to the regime are out into the streets, arresting people, harassing people. And everybody's afraid, so they're staying home. And if you show any sympathy towards the United States getting rid of Maduro, you're arrested. So Venezuela is still under basically military rule of the people who ran the government for Maduro. It's not like Maduro was a one-man show. It was an entire infrastructure that Chavez, before Maduro, had created, and Maduro had inherited and continues. And the military has huge financial incentives. And I think the military realizes that if the opposition ever got into power, they would probably fire them and probably put them up for trial. These people, abused their power, stole money from the people, killed people. They're afraid. So supposedly the way this is going to work is the United States is going to tell the Venezuelan government what it wants them to do. And then the Venezuelan government is going to say, yes, sir. And if they don't, then the U.S. government will do more military stuff. What stuff? What is the U.S. government going to do? What is the threat hanging over Venezuela? Are they going to now snatch the vice president and then the vice president will become president? Are they going to bomb the place and kill the entire leadership of this government? Are they going to stop bombing Caracas? What exactly is the U.S. going to do to achieve its aims? It's threatening. What really? And then, is there any way, given that the Venezuelan people, unlike, to some extent at least, the Iranian people, have not gone into the streets, is this going to require boots on the ground? And look, if it's required boots on the ground, I believe the United States has the strongest military force in the world. It has the best technology. It has the incredible soldiers. It can do what it wants, particularly in the air, but it can do what it wants if it wants to deploy that force. But given the rules of engagement, given everything else, given the way America fights wars, and given the morality of a war with Venezuela is not a threat to the security of the United States. It's just not. How are you going to fight a war in Venezuela? How many troops would you have to put on the ground in order to take Venezuela? What would be the purpose? And remember, South America is filled with guerrilla forces. They are good at guerrilla warfare. There's Venezuela is filled with jungles and mountains. And really, the United States really wants to get into that? And why? What would be the purpose? What would be the aim? To get oil? So I don't get it. Right? I thought they had a plan for regime change. They thought they had a plan, maybe coordinated with the opposition in Venezuela, to take out the leadership of Venezuela and bring in somehow, I assume they had a plan, the opposition to take over. And maybe there were some military leaders that the United States had already contacted that were willing to side with them. But just taking Maduro does nothing. Nada, other than flex muscles. Now, maybe flexing muscles is the point. So, yeah, it's crazy. I don't know what this administration is doing. I don't know what they're trying to do. And it really, right now, seems pretty mindless and ridiculous, right? I mean, the reality is that this is not about one man, it's about a whole regime. So where do we go from here? Rubio supposedly is going to run Venezuela. He's going to tell the regime what to do, and they're going to agree. The focus of the U.S., of the administration, is 100% on oil. They want the oil companies in there. They want Americans running the oil business. Will that happen? Who knows? It's, again, going to depend on whether the regime is willing to cooperate. It's not clear why or whether they are. On the other hand, if all it means is U.S. oil companies come in there, help the Venezuelans build up their oil business, and funnel money into the regime to help them get stronger and more oppressive towards their own people, And at the same time, the regime itself will become rich. People in the regime itself will become rich. And yeah, the oil companies will do well as well. But how does that make things better? How has that moved things in a positive direction? Not clear at all. Is this regime, are these people right now in leadership, are they willing to give up power in a really fair election? No. But if the U.S. gives them a bunch of money through improving their oil industry and opening up the embargo and opening up, sale of oil, maybe they'll be so wealthy that they can bribe themselves into a new election. The whole thing is just ridiculous. I mean, I was a little bit positive on Saturday, partially because I'm always impressed by really efficacious military operations. We'll get to that in a minute. And partially because I thought there was a possibility that, and this was my mistake, that the Trump administration had a plan. I'm benevolent in that way. I think people have plans. I think people think, know what they're doing and plan accordingly and have their act together and they know what's happening. It turns out, no, there is no plan. They have no clue what they're doing. And that is absolutely what we're seeing. And well, I might be wrong, right? We might, in the next few days, weeks, we might find out that there is a plan and something else will happen. We'll see. Clearly, this serves well as a distraction from a lot of things that the administration would like you to be distracted from, whether it's Epstein or whether it's whether just how unpopular Trump is in the polls, cost of living, all the other stuff that is not quite exactly going their way, tariffs, all of that. Maybe this is a distraction, but whatever. I don't see how this leads to anything that serves America's interests. It doesn't reduce drugs. I mean, I will say this. It turns out that the U.S. did bomb 2 Hezbollah facilities in Venezuela, giving credence to Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens' claim that this was all a Zionist ploy. It was all done at the behest of Israel, which is kind of funny. But yes, so one supposedly factory where drones were being built, both for Hezbollah and for the Venezuelan army use. And these Iranian design, there's Iran again, Iranian design drone. And another facility supposedly where they were creating fake documents, passports and others for terrorists. So, I don't know if that's true again, but that's what I've read. And if that's true, that's great. But is that going to go away because we bombed some stuff? I mean, what prevents it from being rebuilt? Will we go back? Will we rebomb every few weeks, months, years? What's the next step? What's the plan? Other than we control Venezuela because Trump said so. I don't know what the plan is. I don't see a plan. I don't see any evidence of a plan. Another element coming out of this attack, it turns out that according to the Cuban government, 32 Cubans were killed in the operation on Saturday early morning. It is likely that the 32 were part of Maduro's security team that was protecting Maduro. That, of course, indicates the importance of the relationship between Venezuela and Cuba. Cuba does not survive without Venezuelan money. Venezuela still has some money from oil. Some of that money goes to Cuba. Cuba supplies the Venezuelans with security personnel, call it that way. People train the military, serve as bodyguards, and other things, and I think many kind of advisors, but primarily on the military side. So Cuba has a strong interest in seeing the Venezuelan regime survive because it's a source of funding, and we'll see. I told you on Saturday that I thought that this attack on Venezuela would reduce the probability of an attack by China on Taiwan. And I think I continue to think that's true, partially for the reasons regarding oil that I talked about earlier. But also, there's one other element that I did not mention Saturday. It turns out that we talked about it on Saturday, the air defense system, the Venezuelan air defense system that completely failed, that did not prevent U.S. helicopters from flying low straight into Caracas and into the presidential palace. Now, it could be, and there's no confirmation one way or another, one possibility is that somebody shut it all off. That is, that somebody in the military cooperated with the Americans, or somebody in government cooperated with the Americans and just shut it all off. There's even a rumor that Maduro wanted to be kidnapped by the Americans in order to get out from under the Cubans, because if he had tried to run away to Russia or something like that, the Cubans would have killed him. This way, he goes to America. He maybe spends a few years in jail. Trump pardons him, and he goes to Moscow. You know, who knows? That seems like a ridiculous conspiracy theory, but it could be that somebody high up in Venezuela actually turned off all the air defense systems. That's one possibility. But much more likely is that the air defense systems failed, primarily Russian air defense systems, with one exception. The Chinese had these brand new sophisticated radars installed in Venezuela. These are radars that the Chinese are selling with the marketing statement that they are radars that can pick up stealth fighters, radars that can identify stealth fighters, that they can see an F-22 and an F-35. Now, it is likely that the U.S. figured out how to jam these radars and prevent them from seeing the F-22s and F-35s that were up in the air, and for that matter, anything else up in the air above Venezuela. It seems that these Chinese radars failed completely. And if that is the case, if they failed, if U.S. technology has overcome the ability of these radars, then not only does that mean that American airplanes are still stealthy when it comes to China, but it also suggests something that I've been suggesting for a while now, and that is that the Chinese military is very powerful on paper. The Chinese military is very powerful if you believe all their assertions about the capabilities of their weapon systems. But maybe, just like the Russians, the weapon systems are nowhere near as good as they claim they are. And if that's the case, maybe they're a paper tiger, technologically advanced, paper tiger in the sense that the technology is paper. It can't do the things that they promise it'll do. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but there's good reason to believe it is. Xi in China has purged many of the senior officers within the Chinese army over the last couple of years. And the purges were explained as consequence of corruption. Now, I don't know if that was the real reason or they just disagreed with him and he purged them for that reason. They weren't loyal enough. But some of them were people he appointed, were his people. Now, it could be that they were purged because they promised to develop certain weapons and the weapons would be able to do X, Y, Z, and they failed. It could be that they were purged because instead of developing the weapons that they promised, they funneled that money into their own Swiss bank accounts. It could be, and highly likely, that a lot of these purges have to do with the fact that the Chinese army is nowhere near as mighty as some people would like you to believe. So, the failure of the Chinese radars is, I think, going to be significant. And whether they failed or were turned off is going to be important. Let's see, a few more things about Venezuela. Yeah. Oh, I wanted to show this as a video. Let me see if I can. Let me see if we can make that happen. Yeah, there's a good chance we can show that. All right. It's too funny not to show you a video. A reporter asked Trump. This is not the video, but a reporter asked Trump whether he was going to demand that Rodriguez, the vice president, allow opposition figures to return to Caracas. They're all outside Venezuela, and or free any political prisoners. And he basically said, this is a quote, "We haven't gotten to that. Right now, what we want to do is fix up the oil." So just wants the oil. That's his focus. That's what he wants to do. Dubious about whether he could do that. All right, Taiwan again is celebrating. Let's see, what else did I want to add here? Yeah, it's covered that already. Yeah, I mean, Rubio keeps saying they don't want to govern Venezuela. They want to coerce Venezuela to do what they want it to do. Gun diplomacy. Can they do that? Can they do that? Not clear. There is still a partial blockade on oil leaving Venezuela. So to that extent, maybe it exists. Okay, I have to show you this video of Tucker Carlson. It's just too good to be true. You know, I gave you a number of reasons why I thought maybe Donald Trump did what he did on Saturday morning. Why this administration went out and took out Maduro. I have no sympathy for Maduro, so taking out Maduro gets a thumbs up from me. But there's no strategy here. It doesn't seem like there's anything else going on. Again, Trump is a gangster. Gangsters take out other bad guys sometimes. That is good, right? Getting rid of other bad guys is good. But whether anything actual good comes out of it, maybe deterring China a little bit, maybe showing U.S. strength a little bit. But bottom line is, I just don't see how they go from where they are now to actually some kind of positive outcome in the months to come, or a significant changed outcome, a new outcome, a different outcome. My guess is that Trump will say, yeah, no more shipments of drugs from Venezuela because there aren't any anyway, and claim victory and walk away, ultimately. All right, but Tucker Carlson has a take on this that I didn't consider. And you know, it's Tucker, and you gotta think maybe. Well, anyway, it's Tucker Carlson, so you gotta see what he has to say. Let's see what he has to say. Let's see what Tucker Carlson's. I don't know if any of you have heard this yet, but this is Tucker Carlson's explanation of what happened, why it happened.
We can safely discount democracy as a reason for affecting regime change in Venezuela.
That is probably
We're not
true.
going to go kill Nicolas Maduro because we don't like the way he's treating his people.
That's true.
It's possible we're mad that he doesn't allow gay marriage. That is a distinct possibility.
So he's not allowing gay marriage. We're mad at that. And now you could think he's just being flippant and throwing out something, but he doubles down on this.
But no one will say that out loud. Not defending the regime, just saying.
No one will say it out loud.
One of the most conservative countries in North or South or Central America. Only El Salvador really comes close, which is much smaller, of course. And by the way, the U.S.-backed opposition leader who would take Maduro's place if he were taken out is, of course, pretty eager to get gay marriage in Venezuela. So to those of you who thought this whole project was globo homo, not crazy, actually.
Why are we trying to install this woman? It makes no sense.
Well, because she'll bring gay marriage to Venezuela, and that's important.
I mean, all I can do is laugh because it's so pathetic. I mean, that's it. I mean, I mean, as if the demon scratching him in the middle of the night wasn't enough. Yeah, we just did this because we want to bring gay marriage to Venezuela. That's certainly at the top consideration of the Trump administration. I mean, you could imagine maybe he would say this if it was Biden, Obama, or something like that. This is Trump. And this is Rubio and Hegseth, and they're really concerned about gay marriage, one with the other. And it's just, what an idiot. But he had made this comment about Maduro and Maduro's government being the most conservative government. He said this a few months ago in South America, and therefore one of the good guys, right? Because they didn't allow abortion, and they didn't allow gay marriage, and they were very conservative. And therefore they should be an ally of the United States, because those are the things that really matter. It's not whether you're a socialist. It's not whether you're an Islamist. What really matters is, do you, and this is why Qatar is so good, do you allow abortion? Do you allow gay marriage? You know, do your attitude towards sex, whatever the social issue of the day, pornography, they ban pornography. Those are the issues that matter to Tucker Carlson. Now, I think he is making himself super irrelevant, but he's still got millions of followers. People are still watching his videos. Maybe it's a joke now, but they are. Oh, I don't want you to see that picture. We'll get to her. We'll get to that woman later. That's even a better video. Actually, a spookier video, but one from somebody a lot less influential and a lot less powerful than Tucker. But I just wanted to. We'll get to her as a representative of the left, of the good Marxist left. It's all about gay marriage. World War III is going to be about gay marriage. This is why, by the way, they love Putin. I mean, basically, not like quite this, but basically, Jordan Peterson. You remember I did a whole show on Jordan Peterson's kind of defense of Putin, the argument for Putin was he's a conservative. He's Christian, he's religious, he's conservative, he's got our values, he's Western civilization. We can't go to war with him. You'd think the source of that little video was The Onion. You'd think it would be an AI thing, but it's not. It is actually real. It's as funny as The Onion is, but reality is often funnier than comedy. All right, talk about funny and ridiculous. I want to talk about John Mearsheimer, something like that, right? This guy is an intellectual. He teaches at the University of Chicago, a world-leading commentator on geopolitics. And really, it came to the forefront and came to my attention and pretty much everybody else's attention, really, big time, after Russia invaded Ukraine. And he came out. He had done talks about Ukraine and Russia in the past, and some of those talks were interpreted as he was predicting that Russia would invade Ukraine, in spite of the fact that over and over again over the years he said, no, Putin doesn't really want Ukraine. He doesn't want to take over the whole of Ukraine. He's got these problems, but he wouldn't do it. Even just before the war, he predicted it wouldn't happen, but it did happen. Anyway, when the war happened, he was all over the place, basically blaming NATO and the West for the war, and blaming the Ukrainians, blaming NATO, blaming the EU for Putin's war. And he got a lot of press. I had so many people on my chat saying, but Mearsheimer, you got to watch this talk by him. He's brilliant, and he shows how it's all Ukraine's fault. Russia's the good guys. And he was pushed out there as him and Jeffrey Sachs as the expert on Russia. And of course, he predicted that Russia would win the war much faster than it did. He predicted that Russia wouldn't have territorial ambitions beyond the Donbass. Almost everything he's predicted since then about Russia has turned out wrong. Just before the war, he said, the Russians are doing very well for themselves. This is about the Russian economy. And I don't think they're going to invade. Turns out they're not doing that well, and we're never doing that well economically, quite badly. Still a poor country. And they did invade. He also, we'll talk about Venezuela in a second. So here's this expert that everybody cites, that is on all the shows, that he probably gets tens of thousands of dollars per lecture, public appearance. He was, all these declarations about Russia, pro-Russia. I mean, at some point he was even asked, I think in Australia or somewhere, you sound like all your points are Putin talking points. And he basically said yes. I mean, it's complete Putin crony, but used by everybody, by all the media and all the so-called experts and all my opponents used him over and over and over again. And then October 7th happened. And then he started to talk about the Middle East. Now, Russia, arguably, I don't know as much, maybe. I mean, he's dedicated his whole career to studying Russia. Although it turns out I know more than he does. But the Middle East, I know. And he was just wrong from the beginning on everything. And then when the 12-day war with Iran happened, he basically said that Israel was going to use nukes, because it was the only way Israel could deal with Iran. Israel was going to use nukes. I'm not kidding. It's actually what he said. It was going to use nukes, and not tactical ones. Use nukes to flatten Iran and murder Americans. He thought it would be a false flag operation. So nukes would be used on Americans, claiming the Iranians did it, whatever. Some ridiculous, stupid stuff like that. He thought Israel would suffer enormous casualties in a war with Iran. He was wrong on. He thought there's no, when the pages. You remember when the pages happened? The pages blew up in Lebanon with the Hezbollah. He said, that is meaningless. Israel's taking huge casualties in Lebanon. Hezbollah is incredibly powerful. Israel's going to lose this war. Hezbollah is going to, Israel is underestimating how powerful Hezbollah is. He said the same thing about Iran. I mean, the guy's 100 predictions, 0 on 100. It's just awful. And then, now everyone in my chat saying, yeah, he's a deviant intellectual. Yeah, he's terrible. Yeah, he's all this stuff. But if you go back 3 years, my chat was full of, you got to listen to Mearsheimer. Mearsheimer is the guy. He knows everything. God, unbelievable. Anyway, he predicted. First of all, he said, all this buildup of assets in the Caribbean Sea, it's just a bluff. It's a bluff. Trump isn't going to do it. It's all to cut a real estate deal. Trump wants a real estate deal. That was his explanation for what was going in the Caribbean Sea. Then he said, in a long-form interview, which I listened to the whole thing, he said, U.S. can't do anything in Venezuela. Venezuela has a military. They have a big regime. What they're going to do? They're going to take Maduro. How are they going to find him? He's well protected. He's guarded. There's no way the United States can do it. More egg on his face over and over and again. So anyway, I just wanted to dedicate 5 minutes to saying that John Mearsheimer is a third-rate, academic, international affairs non-expert. He's awful. He's terrible. He knows nothing. Don't listen to him. Don't watch him. It is really tragic that we live in a world in which he gets a massive amount of attention from the left, from MAGA, or other people who love Russia. The left, MAGA, and the libertarians love this guy. And yet he is a joke. He doesn't know his stuff. He doesn't understand the world. He is, quote, a realist who, I know realists who are reasonable. Or at least new stuff, right? Kissinger, you can disagree with Kissinger, and I disagree with Kissinger on almost everything. But Kissinger knew stuff. He wasn't an idiot. He didn't spout nonsense, and he didn't have these, he didn't make these ridiculous, absurd predictions. But, so he was supposedly the guy who coined the term realist school of foreign policy. Mearsheimer has nothing to do with it. Realism is a bad, philosophically bad. And this guy is particularly just, I don't know if stupid is the right word or what it exactly is, but he's really, really bad. So stay away from him. Have a good laugh about Mearsheimer, right? All right, let's see. Yes. Let's talk about Waltz. We're talking about Minnesota Governor Tim Waltz. As you know, Minnesota, the corruption in welfare in Minnesota has just reached astronomical numbers and levels. And now some of this has been dramatically exaggerated by MAGA, and some of it was made up. But it's really bad, right? It's really bad. And there's plenty of reason to believe that the state government in Minnesota exhibited incredible incompetence in dealing with this, and maybe even to the point of turning a blind eye to the corruption because they didn't want to offend the Somali population in Minneapolis. And so this has made Tim Waltz look really, really bad. Of course, this is Tim Waltz who ran as vice president with Kamala Harris. She should have taken Shapiro. She would have had a much better chance with Shapiro, and it wouldn't have looked so embarrassing after the fact. You know, that decision will she's dead in the water for any future in politics. But anyway, he today announced that he will not be running. He will actually withdrawing from the governor's race in 2026. He was going to seek re-election for a third term, and he has decided to not seek re-election. So this is a case where, the Democratic Party basically went to him and said, you are a liability at this point to the party. You did so poorly here that it's a liability. Let me just, I want to emphasize something about welfare fraud. It's happening everywhere. There's a story today about massive welfare fraud in Mississippi. It happens all the time. It's been going on for decades. It went on steroids, the fraud, after the Trump and then Biden stimulus packages that had all kinds of goodies around COVID. So COVID blew this up because the government was basically, the assumption of the government was, we just want to hand out money. We want to hand out money. We want to get money out there to keep the economy afloat, and we can do that by just giving money so people spend it. And that'll increase demand, and that'll spur supply. It'll also raise prices, of course, but they were just throwing money at businesses. You remember the temporary, what was it, employment thing, where they gave every business money, and they threw it at individuals, and they threw it at welfare, and they threw it at autism, and they threw it at everything. And the consequence of that was people created whole entities to suck as much money fraudulently as they could because the government is so ripe for fraud. And some of this will be caught. Most of it will not be caught, but much of it will be caught in Minnesota, to the Biden administration's credit and to some law enforcement within Minnesota's credit. They did catch it, and they have been prosecuting people around it, and some of them have already been sentenced and are spending time in jail. Every state has this, and we're going to discover more and more and more of this. But this has become a big rallying call for MAGA because it's Tim Waltz and because it's Somalis. They love to hate Somalis, and because of the size and scope of this is massive. Right? So Tim Waltz is out. Interestingly, it does appear, and we will know later tonight, but it does appear that Senator Amy Klobuchar is likely to run for governor. She wasn't going to if Waltz was going to run, but given that he is withdrawing, and it turns out that she was in a meeting with him to convince him to withdraw. She was in a meeting with him, I guess, over the weekend. So Klobuchar is running. This will give, I think, Klobuchar is a relatively centrist Democratic senator from Minnesota. She is a centrist. She's not part of the wacky left of the Democratic Party. She gives, I think, the Democrats a chance to keep the state It also sets her up potentially to run for president in the future. She did run in the primaries last time and lost to Biden. 2 times ago, lost to Biden. But, she's mildly a better Democrat than a lot of the crazy leftists. This will be interesting to see. I don't know who the Republicans are putting up. Last I heard, it was Pillow Man. You remember, what's his name? I forget the guy's name, but the idiot, complete nutcase, Trumpist zombie who sells those pillows. It was going to run. And I would vote for pretty much anybody over Mike Lindell. I mean, the guy's a nut, a complete another screwball nut. So I would easily vote for Amy Klobuchar over him. Hopefully, it's the My Pillow guy. Hopefully, Republicans will find somebody better than Mike Lindell. But who knows? He has money, and Trump loves him because he was big into the conspiracy theories around Trump losing the election in 2020. Winning the election. Didn't lose it. Of course he didn't lose it. God, he couldn't have lost it. How could he lose it? How could Trump lose anything? Trump never loses. So let's see if Republicans in the primary vote for somebody other than Lindell. If it's Lindell, I hope Klobuchar wins, right? But if it's not Lindell, then hopefully it's a semi-rational Republican, and then I would probably vote Republican. I'm not sure. We'd have to know more about Minnesota politics, because voting Republican, for example, puts abortion in Minnesota in play, then I would vote for a Democrat. Now that abortion is a state issue, it's dangerous to vote for a Republican on the state level. All right. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Kelly. So as you probably remember, we talked about this on the show a few months ago. You remember Senator Kelly and a number of other Democratic senators put out a video a few months ago basically telling, this is as a consequence of the blowing up boats and just Trump threatening to use the U.S. military in ways that it's not supposed to, and he doesn't have the constitutional authority to make them act. There was a video made by these Democratic lawmakers basically advising servicemen that they were not required to follow illegal orders under the Constitution. So basically just stating the fact, which is a truth. The Trump administration flipped out over this. And you might remember that Trump and Secretary Hegseth threatened to court-martial him, to actually bringing in, because we're talking about somebody who is a decorated pilot, astronaut, pretty famous guy in that career. 39 combat missions, 4 missions to space, Anyway, what did he say? If you get an illegal order, you do not have to follow it. That makes a lot of sense. That's what the Constitution says. Anyway, it turns out that Hegseth came to the conclusion that, he's in the reserve, Navy, I think. He's a pilot. And they were going to kind of call him up and then court-martial him. It turns out that Hegseth probably couldn't do that, couldn't pull that off. There probably wasn't a case to be made in a court-martial. He probably would have lost. So Hegseth instead has decided to order an investigation which would lead to a reduction in Kelly's retired rank of captain, a reduction in his pay, and possibly elimination of his, pension from the military. Just treat him, horribly. It's just unbelievable how vindictive this administration is, how they don't care about the law, they don't care about the Constitution. Hegseth has issued a formal letter of censure, which outlines the totality of Captain, for now, he says in parentheses, Kelly's reckless misconduct. This censure is a necessary process step and will be placed in Captain Kelly's official and permanent military personnel record file. Captain Kelly has been provided notice of the basis for this action and has 30 days to submit a response. The retirement grade determination process directed by Secretary Hegseth will be completed within 45 days. Captain Kelly's status as a sitting United States Senator does not exempt him from accountability, and further violations would result in further actions. These actions are based on Kelly's public statement from June through December 2025, in which he characterized lawful military operations as illegal and counseled members of armed forces to refuse lawful orders, which is a complete distortion of what actually happened. As Senator Kelly responds to this, my rank and retirement are things that I earned through my service and sacrifice for this country. I got shot at. I missed holidays and birthdays. I commanded a space shuttle mission while my wife, Gabby, recovered from a gunshot wound to the head. If you remember, she was a congresswoman who got shot, all while proudly wearing the American flag on my shoulder. Generations of service members have made these same patriotic sacrifices for this country, earning the respect, appreciation, and rank they deserve. Pete Hegseth wants to send a message to every single retired service member that if they say something he or Donald Trump doesn't like, they will come after them in the same way. It's outrageous, and it's wrong, and there's nothing more un-American than that. I agree with him completely. If Pete Hegseth, the most unqualified Secretary of Defense, I agree with that too, in our country's history, thinks he can intimidate me with a censure or threat to demote me or prosecute me, he still doesn't get it. I will fight this with everything I've got. Not for myself, but just, well, I mean, this is his sacrifice stuff, but to send a message back that Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump don't get to decide what Americans in this country get to say about their government. Good for Senator Kelly. I will note that all of this attention Kelly is getting is, I think, going to do a lot for Senator Kelly's presidential ambitions. I would not be surprised at all if Kelly runs for president in 2028 in the Democratic primary. This kind of attention that he's getting could propel him to a senior position, into a leading position. In those primaries in the Democratic, he'll have to run against the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and maybe there'll be some other Democrats. But he's getting a lot of press right now, and he's presenting himself as this patriot, which will appeal to centrists. It'll appeal to the center of the country. It'll appeal to some Republicans fed up with Trump and who don't want to vote for, let's say it's J.D. Vance or whoever it is. Kelly might be using this as an opportunity to elevate his status. Can't blame him for doing that. All right, final story of the day. Mamdani. Oh, Mamdani. So, Mamdani is a democratic socialist. And, I've said that he can't do much democratically. But some people within his administration are ambitious in terms of their socialism. They're not just armchair socialists. They want to get in and they want to do the real socialism stuff. They want to socialize stuff. So it turns out that his appointee to be kind of head of tenant advocacy, so the advocate for tenants, a big chunk of Mamdani's agenda focuses around trying to lower costs of rent and being an advocate for renters in New York, right? Lower the cost of rent, lower the cost of living. And she's the advocate for renters, right, against landlords. You got to watch this video. This is a video of this woman, Kia Weaver, who is tenant advocate under Mamdani's administration. I laugh because, look how young she is. And you'll see in a minute how delusional she is. And luckily for all of us, she can't actually get any of the stuff that she wants done. But it's still pretty horrifying. Somebody in American government, even if it's just the city government of New York, believes this crap. Here it is.
I think the reality is that for centuries we've really treated property as an individualized good and not a collective good.
Yeah, so the real problem in the world is too much individualism. Mamdani's already told us that. And a symbol of that, the primary symbol of that in the world out there is private property. Private property, that's individual property. We don't like private property. We don't like individualism. We want collectivism. You know, friendly, nice, wonderful, friendly, warm collectivism. So we don't want private property. We want, let's keep going.
Property as an individualized good and not
No,
a collective
that's
good.
not
And we are going to transitioning to treating it as a collective good and towards a model of shared equity will.
So they're transitioning towards treating private property as collective property, as turning private homes into collective ownership, into owned by the collective. I mean, she's a real socialist. She's not holding back. And this is what they want to transition towards.
Of shared equity.
Shared equity
will require that we think about it differently. And it will mean that families, especially white families, but some POC families who are homeowners as well, are going to have a different relationship to property than the one that we currently have.
Families can have a different relationship to property than they currently have. In other words, they can have a relationship that it's not their property anymore, that these bastards are going to nationalize it. They're just going to take it. They're just going to, you know, this is anti-everything this country stands for. It's anti-Western. It's anti-civilizational. It's anti-enlightenment. And of course, it's racist. It's like white families, not white families, because I guess the claim would be that most of the property in New York is owned by white people. So maybe it's just a numbers game. But they're going to have to change. I mean, think about changing your relationship with your home, changing your relationship with the property that you own. When you don't own it anymore, you can have a different relationship with it. Now, luckily for all of us, what she's advocating for is anti-constitutional. Will get thrown out of the courts. It won't even have to go to the Supreme Court because it gets thrown out in the lower courts, and all courts will throw this out. There's a takings clause in the Constitution that is quite clear about this stuff. And they can't claim here eminent domain. There's no legitimate case for any kind of eminent domain. No American court is going to stand by this. So this is just a young, idealistic, crazy, anti-American, anti-civilizational, anti-Western civ, socialist nutcase, imagine all the people, right? Imagining what she would like, which is this, socialist fantasy that she has. I'm not going to go through the evil of what it actually means not to have private property and what that would entail, and the evil that would represent. I think you all know that, and you know my position on this. This was mainly for your entertainment. It's not going to happen, but it does mean, and this is serious and scary and important, that this Mamdani administration will do everything they can that is within the scope of their power, which is not much, but everything they can within the scope of their power, to undermine property rights. This will be an agenda. A big part of their agenda is to undermine property rights. That is a fundamental, essential characteristic of socialism. They disdain property. They disdain individualism. The individualism manifests in property rights. That's what they want done away with. And that's what we're going to see. This is strange. Why won't it work? Email search is not working. All right, that, my friends, is the news. The news for this Monday, January 5th, 2026. Again, Happy New Year to everybody. And I hope that you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to support the show. I've done very, very well today. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. We'll get to individual thank yous in a minute. But thank you, guys. We're already close to our third hour target. So only $46 left. A lot of questions, so we might make it into the third hour. Probably will. So, don't stop. $46 to go. That would be great. I'm trying. My email is going ballistic, okay? What happens if I quit mail and then start it up again? We'll see if that helps. All right, let me remind you of some of the sponsors of the Yaron Brook Show. We have Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein is the world #1 thinker, writer, advocate on issues related to freedom as they apply to energy, environmentalism, American industry, and American business. His Substack is an incredible resource. I use it all the time. I learned so much from it. I think you would too. It just sharpens my own thinking about these issues because Alex has given so much thought to these specifics. I benefit enormously, and I'm sure all of you would too. So please consider signing up for Alex's Substack and getting it into your mailbox on a regular basis. Also, Michael Williams of Defenders of Capitalism. What am I hesitating? Because it's defendersofcapitalism.com. Defendersofcapitalism.com. It's a great resource. Michael is a great guy. He's fighting for a proper defense of capitalism, a proper presentation, and a proper defense of capitalism. Michael has hired me over many years to present capitalism at Leadership Program of the Rockies. Check him out, defendersofcapitalism.com. And let's see, Hendershot Wealth Management, which has products that can dramatically reduce your capital gains tax exposure. And save you a lot of money if you've got some stocks that have gone up a lot, or if you're about to sell a business. You should definitely at least check them out. Check out what they have to offer. Check out if it applies to you. You can check it out by going to my interview with Robert Hendershot on my playlist under sponsors, and also by checking out Hendershot, 2 T's, Hendershot, 2 T's, wealth.com/YBS. hendershotwealth.com/YBS. Also, and I'm looking for this email and I cannot find it. It's driving me crazy. I still want to remind you that next week, a bunch of ARI Live courses are starting, and you can still sign up. You've got the Yaron Brook Show discount. What is it? It's YBS 2006-10. YBS 26 YBS 10. 26 YBS 10. Check it out. You've also got Nikos's course that he was describing when he was on. That is also available on the Ayn Institute on ARI Live. The nice thing about ARI Live is you take the classes whenever you want to take them. It's really up to you. You can take them live if you want, or you can listen to them afterwards. Now, those of you interested, I am doing a public speaking course. It's going to be like, 8 sessions, 2 hours each session, so 16 hours on public speaking. You will be doing a lot of the speaking. I'll be critiquing it, but you don't have to. That's only if you want to participate. If you want to participate, you can, and you will be able to, or you will be able to present and get critiqued. If you don't want to, you can just sit in, watch other people embarrass themselves. No, I don't mean that. I mean present, and get critiqued. No embarrassment happens. It's not embarrassing. And I'm pretty gentle. You can ask people. I'm pretty gentle. Truthful, but gentle. So all of that you can access. Again, you can use the same discount code, and you can access at aynrand.org, aynrand.org/start here. aynrand.org/start here. All right. Let's see. I want to remind everybody that, yes, we've got $43 left to go, and the sky's the limit. We don't have to stop at $7.50. So please consider doing a sticker. We've got a lot of people watching, 200 people right now. So please consider doing a sticker, asking a question, and thus participating and just providing a value for value. I'm providing the show. You provide money. That's the trade. That's the trade. All right. Let me thank Sunich. Thank you for the sticker. Thank you, Jeremy Morton, for gifting some memberships. Really appreciate that. There will be a members-only show this coming Sunday. The essay we're covering, if you want to read it in advance, is Selfishness Without a Self. Selfishness Without a Self, and it is from Ayn Rand, Philosophy Who Needs It. Philosophy Who Needs It, Selfishness Without a Self. Check out that essay. We'll be discussing it on Sunday. And we just gifted membership. I'll gift memberships in a little while, in a few minutes. There'll be 10 new gifts. Okay, Daryl, thank you. John, thank you. All right, was that all the stickers? Maybe that was all the stickers. We got a lot of good, juicy questions. All right, remind all those people that are watching right now, please subscribe, and that way you'll get notified when I do shows. So click that subscribe button. Like. It costs you nothing to like the show. And it's not public who likes the show. But if you like the show, then the algorithm will like me more. That'll elevate the show a little bit in the algorithm. It'll make it more visible. So help me out. If you can't do a sticker or super chat, just press the like button. It doesn't cost you anything. And that'll get us noticed by YouTube more. If you're on the chat, talk. The more activity there's on a chat, the more YouTube likes it. If you're listening to this after the fact, comment. The more comments there are, the more YouTube likes it. So YouTube likes all that stuff, right? And then, of course, if you'd like to become a supporter of the show on a regular basis, either become a member, or you can go to Patreon, and there's a membership button there, or go to patreon.com and become a monthly supporter. Put in Yaron Brook Show on the Patreon, and you can become a monthly supporter of the show. All right. Let's jump to your super chat questions, and we'll start with Shazbot, who put in $300. $300. Of course, knowing it's Shazbot, that means I have to review something, and in this case, Shazbot wants me to review Andor Season 2, Episode 10, Make It Stop. I can't remember exactly what happens in that episode, but towards the end of Andor Season 2, it was actually quite good, so I'm looking forward to reviewing that one. That'll be fun. So thank you, Shazbot, and thank you for the $300 that made reaching our goal today possible, likely, got us off to a great start. All right, then we got two $50 super chats. These are great. First one from Wes. Wes says, the effectiveness of the U.S. military in Venezuela makes me even more upset. Why on earth were we playing around with the Houthis? Yeah, no kidding. And other threats for so long. It's ridiculous. Absolutely. And, we have the mightiest military force on planet Earth by far. We can do what we want in big chunks of the world. The only military that has any chance of standing up to the United States is the Chinese. We would defeat the Chinese. It would cost us a lot. It would not be an easy war. But it's the only one that can even come close. No other military can even scratch the U.S., really. Scratch. And I'm counting here Western European militaries and everybody. It's just not, it's not close. So why do we let these insignificant players like Iran and the Houthis, why do we let them? I mean, if we gave these weapons to, if we gave decent weapons to Ukraine, Ukraine could beat Russia. We wouldn't even have to use American troops directly. So, yeah, it really is pathetic. Grant, thank you, Grant, $50. I appreciate that. I can see the efficiency in economies of scale. But what if quality and quality seemingly negative correlation with profit motive? Cut costs, cut quality, increase margins. McDonald's scaled but lowered quality. Toyota scaled but maintained standards. Yeah, I mean, no, markets drive quality. Profit margins drives quality in some cases, right? So what happens in markets is they get segmented by quality. If McDonald's declines because it reduced quality, I don't know if they did, but let's assume they did. I have no idea. Then that creates an opening for some other player to come in and capture the slightly higher quality, space. And, competition doesn't drive quality down. Quite the contrary. It drives quality for a price up. You get higher quality for a given price because of competition. So let's say McDonald didn't change the price, kept the price as it was, and lowered quality. And let's say, there hasn't been inflation and costs are pretty stable and all of that, right? Now, a competitor like Burger King looks at that and says, I can match their price and keep the quality. And yeah, I'll make less money per hamburger. But as people realize that the burgers in McDonald's reduced in quality, they will come over to Burger King. I'll make more money on quantity because I've got a higher quality. And that'll force McDonald's in the long run to raise quality back up, which is exactly what happens over and over again. This is why Toyota keeps quality up. It keeps quality up because it knows that if it doesn't, somebody is going to take market share from them. Somebody will step in there and take, just like Toyota took market share from American car companies who got lazy, who got big and lazy and non-innovative, and they thought they were protected by the U.S. government. They thought no other car company could compete with them because, we'd won World War II, basically. And in the 1970s, the Japanese came in with higher quality, lower price. And if not for the U.S. government bailing the auto companies out, the U.S. auto industry today would be a lot smaller, which it should be. Markets drive quality up. I mean, think about your computer. There's a really competitive market, unbelievable competitive market. You can buy a computer at every price versus quality point along a pretty long graph. You can buy very cheap, still good, right? You can buy now. I mean, the rumor is that Apple is coming out with a MacBook. It's not going to be a MacBook Air. It's going to be cheaper than a MacBook Air. It's going to have not one of their M chips, but one of their A chips, the chips that run the phones in it. And it's going to be really cheap and really good. Not as good as a MacBook Pro, but it'll be a lot cheaper. And of course, at every point, you will get the appropriate quality for the price. And the reason Apple is introducing this is because there are lots of alternatives. There's Dells and Lenovo's and Google Chromebooks and all these others that are competing. So competition constantly is driving the relationship between price and quality, right? I mean, look, Walmart quality is low, so is price. But for the price, the quality is high. Nordstrom quality is high, but expensive. But for the price, the quality is good. right? So it's a constant interplay between these things. But the idea that somehow markets or economies of scale drive down quality is just wrong historically. And when it does, those companies get competed out of business. This happened to the American auto companies. Rockefeller, who had 93% of all the refining capacity in the United States in the 1870s, quality, 93%. Quality went up every single year. Price went down every single year. The iPhone, quality goes up every single year. They just get better. I mean, a little bit, and price pretty much stays the same. So no, I mean, there's nothing out there. There's no. All the principles of economics show that you don't give up quality in a marketplace. And the more dynamic, the freer the marketplace, the more competitive it is, whether it's explicitly competitive or implicitly competitive through substitute products or potential competitors, quality is going up constantly. That's what happens. That's how markets work. That's how the economy works. And again, if somebody lowers quality, they get penalized for it in a free market. All right. Thank you, guys. I did want to mention somebody here did his first super chat ever. Let me just find this. I noticed it earlier. What's it gone? Oh, there. No. Where is it? For some reason, it flagged it earlier, and now it's not flagging it. YouTube. What are they doing, YouTube? I know I saw it earlier. Anyway, to whoever it was that this was the first super chat or the first sticker, thank you. I really, really appreciate. Oh, I think it was one of these guys. Okay, I see. I was looking in the wrong place. Yeah, still can't find it. Anyway, let's go back to Shazbot. Shazbot says, please don't tell us what Star Trek original series episode you choose to review in advance. I'd like to be surprised. Okay, I forgot that that's one of my assignments. One of my assignments. I'll have to do that. All right. And I don't remember the shows, so who knows what I'll choose. I don't remember the episodes. I'll have to go and read the descriptions and figure out which one I want to do based on descriptions. You know, my memory's shot anyway. Michael, do you think too many objectivists have the attitude people aren't ready for objectivism, or people are too primitive to absorb these ideas, so we don't bother being as intense or passionate in spreading them? No, I actually don't think that's the case. I've seen no evidence of that. I think a lot of people are just too focused on their own lives. I mean, I don't know what too focused is, but they're focused on their own lives and are not focused on spreading the ideas versus their own lives. I think some people are not confident enough to go out there and engage people with their ideas. I think there are lots of personal reasons. I don't think there's a lot of people are too primitive. You know, I don't think that attitude exists much in objectivism. I might be wrong, but I haven't seen it, if it exists. All right, a 3-part question, it looks like, again from Michael. Thank you, Michael. So many questions to ask about Trump's operation in Venezuela. What was Trump's motive? Were there any plans in place for transitioning Venezuela to a government supported by Maduro's opposition? So let me just take those. What was Trump's motive? You know, it's hard to tell. I think much of the motive is flexing muscle and being macho. I think he has this vague notion that he wants more oil. He loves oil. He loves the oil industry. He wants more oil. And I think he'd like to see U.S. oil companies control those assets in Venezuela. I don't think it has anything to do with bringing freedom to the Venezuelan people. I don't think he cares one iota for that. I don't think it has anything to do with drugs, because Venezuela is irrelevant to the drug problem in the United States, and they all know it. They all lie about it constantly. It's a macho move. It's a flexing muscle move. It's a gangster move, and it's I think focused on oil. I think those are the two motivations. Were there any plans in place for transitioning Venezuela to a government supported by Maduro's opposition? No. I think the plan is that once they resolve the oil issue and they get American oil companies there controlling the oil fields and really dominating, then they will twist the current government's arm about setting up election down the road at some point, and then maybe the opposition wins or maybe they don't. But they don't care about that. That is not a priority. They're not about transitioning Venezuela to government supported by Maduro's opposition. They don't care about that. That's not part of their agenda. Maybe Marco Rubio cares, but Trump and Hegseth and JD and all the people who actually run the government don't care. Okay, part two is the continuation. What is the message that Trump wants to send by doing this? I think that he that he has both the military strength to do stuff like this, that nobody should mess with us, and that he has the will to approve such operations, that he is willing to engage in military actions to get his way. I think the message is don't mess with Trump. You know, maybe it's a message to Denmark. Hey, you guys should negotiate about giving us Greenland. Maybe it's a message to the Iranians. You should get out of town before we come and get you. Maybe it's a message to the Chinese. But I doubt that. But it's the kind of gangster move where don't mess with us. This is what we do to people who mess with us. And I have the weapons. I have the power to do it. I mean, it's a little scary. Then you think that somebody like Trump, somebody with the mentality of Trump, somebody with the intelligence of Trump, somebody with the attitude of Trump, actually controls the mightiest military force in all of human history. It is very scary. What's he going to use it for? Michael says, would Trump do this to somebody he disagreed with domestically? Not yet. Not yet. I mean, he'd like to, but I don't think he's quite ready for that. I think he realizes that the courts would be after him, public opinion won't quite go with him, so he's a little reluctant to do that. But his mentality is yes, he's a gangster. He's got a gangster mentality. Will he attempt to use force to remain in office? He has already in 2020. Would he try again? He could. He could. I don't know if he has enough levers of power to do it. We will see. We'll find out. Will this have an impact on midterm elections? I don't think so. I think this is the kind of operation that, yeah, maybe Americans get rah-rah, a little bit patriotic, and they support the government, but then nothing really happens, and then what? I'm sure the elections played a role in this. He needs to divert attention from the things that are not going well. Cost of living, tariffs, again, Epstein and other stuff like that. He wants to divert attention. This works for that. But I don't think it'll actually, it's too far in the future. I don't think it'll sustain through November. And I think enough Americans are going to see through this that they won't be that excited about it. Clark, is feeling bad for the less fortunate a real weakness one should get rid of? Is less fortunate an anti-concept? Yes, it's definitely an anti-concept. It assumes fortune is involved. And, there's a sense in which fortune is involved, luck is involved. You have no control over your genes and your circumstances and the country you were born, the century you were born, the parents you were born into. That's all true. But they want to make that what it's all about. What you are is a creature of luck. And what the poor are a creature of luck. And some of that they are, particularly in a mixed economy where the opportunities they face are limited because we don't live in a capitalism, because the government destroys those opportunities, because the government destroys incentives. But there are plenty of people who've escaped poverty to suggest that it's possible. And they what they're trying to do, an anti-concept is trying to confuse your thinking. It's trying to undermine your thinking. What they're trying to do is obliterate the idea of a deserving poor and an undeserving poor. An undeserving poor being somebody who had bad luck and no fault of their own are in a situation of poverty, and I think deserve our help in those circumstances. And the deserving poor, people who choose, for whatever reason, to undermine their own ability to rise up from poverty. Drinking, drugs, irrationality, immorality, and living off of welfare, whatever, all of that. So it wants to obliterate that distinction of deserving versus undeserving. Liam, how much better can objectivism make your life in a heavily irrational world? Do you recognize the external limits to your flourishing, no matter how well you have integrated the philosophy into your soul? Yes, but I think those limits are not very, what's the right term? I don't think they're very constraining. There's so much you can do. There's so much you can do that is out, that the limits are not yet interfering with. There's so much you can do in your own personal life. There's so much you can do in your own development. There's so much you can do still in your profession. There's so much possibilities. Now, yes, there are professions. There are some professions that are particularly sensitive to the state of the culture. I'm thinking of arts and certain arts, and I think of being an intellectual, right? Or if you want to be a professor, a teacher, and you have to deal with the intellectual climate at universities, and you have to deal with the students and the other professors and all of that. It definitely makes. But for a lot of professions, the irrationality makes it harder certainly, but it doesn't make it impossible to be successful. So yes, there are limitations. There's no question. Life could be so much better if we lived in a rational society, but we don't. So you make the most of what you have, and I don't see enough people making the most of what they have. Just living the life and succeeding and building their souls, building their character, enjoying the things that are within their scope, within their control to enjoy. All right, I just gifted 5 people with memberships. ABS Schmidt says, I got a gift. Nice, thanks, my pleasure. Thank you for saying thanks. Thank you. Yes, and I will remind you, there will be a members-only show. Now, if you become a member, 2 perks you get. 1, you can come live to the members-only show. There will be one this coming Sunday. Second, you can go into the member section and watch all the past member shows, which have been private, which you blocked for anybody who's not a member. So by becoming a member, you get those 2 things. You get all the past member shows, and some of them are really fun, and you get the new one, the live one. And the next live show is going to be on the essay, Ayn Rand's essay, Selfishness Without a Self. So please find it online or find a copy of Philosophy Who Needs It. It's a short essay, much easier and much shorter than the one we did last time, which was The Missing Link. And I think you'll really enjoy it. So we'll do that. We'll go back to doing some art. I have some plans from some arts shows for members only. I'm also thinking about the OPA course, OPA reading group that we might form. I'm thinking of different options on how to do it. I'm hoping that let's say within a week, I will have a plan and fill you in and set up like a registration page and all of that. So I'm hoping that within a week, we'll know what we're doing. and we'll start doing OPA on a regular basis. So we'll start doing a reading group of OPA with me leading, and I'm still figuring out how much money to charge. I'm thinking of something like, just to get your reactions, I'm thinking of something like $100 a month, with there being at least 2 shows a month, which each be at least probably 2 hours long. So $100 a month for 4 hours on OPA. That would be my expectation. So let me know what you think. I need to make it worthwhile. We'd want 20 to 30 people signed up for it. That would be amazing if we got 20 to 30 people, right? All right. I see Silvanus is on board. That's great. Baker. Yes for a redo on the Rules of Life shows, but 5x. But 5x, what does that mean? 5 times. Yes for a redo on virtue shows. The objectivist ethics are the most crucial needed. Oh, but 5x yes for a redo on the virtue shows. So he wants more virtues and more so than the Rules for Life, although the Rules for Life were really the virtues, another form, another repetition of the virtue shows with a different spin on them. It's all the same, right? The objectivist ethics are the most crucially needed part of our philosophy and are relatively easily graspable by an honest newcomer. All right, I really appreciate that input, and I will start thinking about how to do that and when to do that, and how to integrate it into all these new shows as well and everything else. But yes, so we've got Ocon study group, we've got virtues, we've got the capitalism shows, the civilization form versus Christianity shows, and the meaning shows. We could do the meaning, could be also virtues. We could fit the virtues into kind of the meaning shows. Yeah, we'll figure this out. There are not enough days in a week to do all the shows I'd like to do, it turns out. But we will figure it out and we'll make it happen. All right, Anonymous says, fine, with a smoke. Why is the stock market up today? Well, let me first say that the real answer to that, the proper answer to that, is I don't know. I don't know. The stock market going up or down any particular day is very difficult to assess. I mean, okay, Maduro happened over the weekend. That's the obvious news. What does that suggest? Maybe oil prices going down, probability of China invading Taiwan going down. Those are all good things for the economy, all good things for lack of instability moving into the future, reduction in uncertainty, things better in the future. That gets priced, and that could be the cause of the market going up. Also, all of that could suggest less fear in the market. I mean, let me just see. Let's take a look at the stock market. 1 second. Russell 2000, which is small stocks, way up. I think a lot of that is driven by the fact that bank stocks up 2%. Russell 2000 up. So why are bank stocks up 2%? NASDAQ is only up, 2/3%. So AI is up and tech stocks are up, but mostly it's smaller firms and a lot of banks. Gold is up, silver is up, crude oil is up, not down. You'd expect it to be down. But here's a key, right? 50-year bonds are down. As I told you, when interest rates go down, prices go up. Now, the question is, when interest rates go down, asset prices go up, stock markets go up. Why? And those companies most sensitive to interest rates go up the most. What are the companies most sensitive to interest rate changes? Banks. That's why banks up the most. So here's the question. Why does interest rates go down? Maybe because uncertainty is down into the future. Maybe because there's less fear about the future. Maybe because with oil prices coming down, there's some thinking, which I don't think is correct, but some thinking about that puts less pressure on prices. Prices might come down, less inflation, the way people understand it, price inflation. As a consequence, more likely the Fed reduces interest rates. So we're already reducing rates in anticipation. Lower interest rates, higher stocks. So any of that could be a cause. Now, given all that, why is gold going up? Gold, it should go in the opposite direction. Silver should go in the opposite direction. Gold is up almost 3%, and silver's up 7%. What about Bitcoin? Yeah, Bitcoin's up huge, right? Bitcoin was way under 90 just last week. Now it's up to 94. So Bitcoin's going up, gold is going up, in spite of the fact that we've, because of what? Maduro? What does Maduro have to do with gold? And again, it's impossible to explain daily movements in stocks. You can often explain long-term movements in stocks once you get some distance and you look back at them. To explain daily movements in stock market indexes, yeah, very, very difficult, and it's not clear. There's so many moving parts, there's so many considerations, and there's so many things driving the people speculating in these stocks. That is my explanation, sorry. Andrew, altruism requires pretense to want to help others as one's purpose. But even if under self-pretense one believes one wants to help, does altruism require negating moral credit for the helping because one wants to do so? I mean, the more one wants to do so, the more one perceives it as a self-interest, the less credit you can give yourself, or the less credit somewhere in your psychology you're going to give yourself for an altruistic action. Certainly that's what Kant suggested, that you give yourself less credit. And I think that's somewhat internalized. It's why we admire so much those who really sacrifice. The more they sacrifice, the more we admire them. And if we think there's a hint of a self-interested motivation, we admire them less. So I definitely think that there's a psychological element of not giving yourself full credit for the full credit under deception for the action, because it made me feel good. I did it out of I did it because I wanted to. Yeah, I mean, that undermines the whole point of a duty. Lincoln, why do you think there's so much speculation in precious metals recently? It seems illogical given it typically moves opposite of the stock market. Well, I mean, I think because you get a lot of speculation in metals when there's enormous uncertainty about the future, both geopolitical uncertainty. I think war in Ukraine, war in the Middle East, war with Iran, maybe war in Venezuela. Are we going to send troops or not? What is China going to do? Are they going to invade Taiwan? Is this all going to deteriorate into World War III? I think any scary scenarios that have geopolitical consequences lead to people speculating or buying precious metals. There's also a lot of uncertainty about price inflation. Prices going up. How much is there going to be? How's the U.S. government going to get rid of its debt? Are they going to inflate it away? When's that going to happen? So the uncertainty around monetary policy as it affects prices is another reason why gold is up. It's not reflecting current inflation or past inflation. It's reflecting the potential for future inflation. I fear it's overdone, but what do I know? Would I be surprised to see gold to 3,000? No, I wouldn't. But I'm shocked to see gold at 4,500. So what do I know, right? This guy says, capitalism makes profit, not quality. You can only make profit by producing quality. So capitalism makes quality by extension. To live in the 21st century, I look at my setup here with 3 monitors, an amazing camera, these LED lights that I can control from my computer, the soundboard, which is amazing, a computer that doesn't even doesn't even huff and puff to do all this and manage it all. And to say capitalism doesn't produce quality is so evasive. It's so, check your premise, guy. Think about what you're advocating for. Think about what you believe. There's something really wrong about what you hold to believe that. Just think about, you're probably on an iPhone. You're probably on a Samsung. You're probably on a smartphone, which is a direct product of one of the freest markets in the world, the technology market, a capitalist market. And you're probably driving an automobile, which is a pure product of capitalism and competition. And I could go on and on and on and on. God, capitalism is all about quality. I mean, your food and vegetables and your restaurants and everything in your world is dramatically superior in terms of quality than it was 20, 30, 50, 100, 500 years ago by orders of magnitude because of whatever capitalism we have. So you have to be completely, utterly delusional and not of this world to believe what you're writing. Michael, does the president have the authority to unilaterally determine what a particular nation should be invaded at a particular time? No, he doesn't. I mean, clearly, this Venezuela thing is illegal. It's supposed to be approved by Congress. A military action like this is supposed to be approved by Congress. Congress wasn't approved by it, they weren't even notified by it. It wasn't an emergency. They're bombing us right now, we have to respond. There was plenty of time to let Congress know that you had some intention to get some authority, not an authority for specific action, but just an authority generally to engage in action. And this is illegal. But presidents, starting I think with Vietnam, have completely ignored Congress and gotten away with it. So Trump is just continuing a tradition of ignoring Congress. He's not just continuing it, he's elevating the ignoring Congress to a much higher level. GGF Ring, thank you for the sticker. Jimmy, thank you for the sticker. I appreciate it. All right. Matthew, something like that. Putin and Xi condemned U.S. actions in Venezuela. Of course they did. Do you think they simply want to oppose the U.S. and support an oppressive dictator? Or are they also nervous about the display of U.S. military strength? Well, I think it's all of it. They want to support a fellow dictator. They want to oppose the U.S. They are worried about the display of force. But more than that, they have investments in Venezuela. They have weapon systems in Venezuela. They have economic ties to Venezuela. China relies on Venezuelan oil. So they have real political, economic, geopolitical concerns about Venezuela. As I've told you, China's worried about its oil supply in a case of it goes to war. And, it was relying on Venezuelan oil. And now it can't. That's a problem for them. Also, they don't want to support it because by supporting by supporting the U.S. here, it basically says, yeah, the U.S. is okay going around the world deposing authoritarians. Well, what about them? They're authoritarians. If the U.S. has the authority to get rid of Maduro, does it have the legitimacy to get rid of Putin, to get rid of Xi? Where does it start from their perspective? Michael, as Trump turned America into a bully and he found a weak little man in Banana Republic that also happens to have a ton of oil. Yeah, but Trump is a bully, and he's just making America reflect who he is. And he's discovered that he can use military force in order to do things like this. But yeah, I think that's right. Rajiv, excellent analysis, Dr. Brook, on Iran and the great consequences of the regime's fall. Thank you and Happy New Year. Thank you, Rajiv. Appreciate you being a member. Michael, I was talking to a young Iranian on a VPN. He said he wished it was easier to find weapons for the revolution. He said, don't give up on your Second Amendment. Yeah, that's fine. the problem in the U.S. is, anyway, we can talk about the Second Amendment and why I don't think having a gun at home is going to protect our liberties. But I mean, a real issue in Iran is they have to do more ambushing of the existing police and military forces and steal their weapons, which is what you'd have to do if you wanted to revolt against the American government anyway. You'd have to break into military bases and steal weapons. You couldn't just do it with the M16 that you have at home. Not good enough. Larry, Yaron, your coverage of the world events continues to be outstanding and your commentary is super insightful. I appreciate that, Larry. Appreciate that. Thank you. And I will be doing the book. I will be doing the short story in a week and a half. Michael says, the sheer lightning speed at which MAGA went from wars are bad to invading countries and regime change is awesome, is dumbfounding. It is. And it just shows how much of MAGA is oriented around personality worship of Trump. And how horrific that could be if Trump does even worse things. Michael, is Trump in the early stages of dementia? He likely to unleash more wild, unjustified military actions? I don't know. I don't think so, because this was a very relatively low risk operation for Trump, and even with his base, I think this was relatively low risk. So I don't think we're going to see a lot more military operations. Is he in the early stage of dementia? I don't think so. Although he is fading, so you can see that. I don't know if you saw him standing behind Hegseth and Rubio during the press conference. He was half asleep. I mean, he had his eyes closed. I was worried that he was going to fall asleep and fall down standing up. He really, really looked old. He looked terrible. So, reality is that the presidency is a young man's job. You should be in your 40s and 50s to be president of the United States. Lincoln. Is music in decline over the past few decades? Music from 80s, 90s, and even before still get played, but modern music is quickly forgotten. Similarly, there used to be many bands and musicians that were universally known. Nobody today matches that at the level aside from Taylor Swift. I mean, I think music is in decline, just like most of the arts, maybe with the exception of TV. But I don't know that because I don't know enough about popular music. I don't follow it. I don't listen to popular music. So it might be that there are groups they're just not as famous. But I do think the era of the Beatles and the era of the 70s were better eras for popular music than they are right now. I think the music today has become monotone and dull and boring and it lacks any kind of complexity and interest. But I can't say that for sure because I don't know enough about music. Paul, do you think a revolution like this could have happened had Obama supported the Iranian revolutionaries during his term? Yes. They were it was a big revolution back then. And, I think it was 2009, and he failed completely. And I think, yes, absolutely. It could have made a big difference. Would it have happened? Can't be sure, but it would have had a shot. Michael, is there any strategy at all except for appeasing his tough guy base? I mean, he thinks he can get away with the oil stuff. Intimidation is the strategy. They're going to try to intimidate the Venezuelan regime in doing what America wants them to do. We'll see if that works. Michael, did Mamdani's rugged individualism comment move people towards Iran? I'm seeing a lot of people referencing Iran when discussing that line from Mamdani. It certainly made them remember Ayn Rand. I don't think it made them move towards Ayn Rand, but they remembered Ayn Rand. They realized that she is the one who always defended individualism and condemned collectivism. And so it reminded people of her. Whether it will lead new people to read her as a consequence, one can hope that all the attention that got and the connection to Rand will cause some people who haven't read Ayn Rand to go out and read her. That'll be a great outcome, and we will have to be very thankful to Mamdani for that. I think Obama had a lot to do with a lot of people reading Ayn Rand in the 2009 to 2013 period. Lincoln, how much of the rise of fascism, like fascists like Fuentes, is due to the media declaring the right as a whole as fascist? Lost a lot of its meaning, seemingly. I don't think it's much. I mean, yeah, a little bit. It became a joke and it wasn't taken seriously. But no, I mean, you have to explain Fuentes. You can't just explain it as, oh, people don't mind the label fascism because the media overused it. I think it's much more than that. There's a real phenomena here. You know, Fuentes is really a fascist. He's not just playing at it. So, not your average algorithm. Pinker and Harris have escaped Jesus, but are still fully captured by altruism. Why is it easier for intellectuals to reject the metaphysics and epistemology of religion, but not its ethics? I mean, it's a good question, and I don't have an answer. The ethics of Christianity, I mean, this is my attempt at an answer. The ethics of Christianity have only been challenged with an alternative by Ayn Rand. I mean, Nietzsche challenges them, but doesn't provide an alternative. Rand does, but that's new. So the existence of an alternative to altruism is a new phenomenon. Whereas the questioning of the epistemology and metaphysics, you know, they've already been questioned in Greece. There are atheists in the golden era of Islam. Their thinkers were atheists and are challenging the epistemology and metaphysics of religion. And I think throughout the ages, there have been people who challenge that. Morality, for whatever reason, coming up with a new morality, linking it up with Aristotle's, has been the toughest. And only Ayn Rand has really presented an alternative. Thinkers have not done that. Arguably, a little bit Spinoza, a tiny bit John Locke, but not enough to present an actual alternative. Only Ayn Rand. So it's new. That's the main reason. James, Texas is discussing eliminating property taxes as well. This seems like a post the collapse of MAGA GOP strategy. I don't know. It's still, the question is how they're going to fund all government activities. I mean, you can eliminate taxes, but then what? What are you going to actually? How are you going to raise the revenue to fund schools? How are you going to raise the revenue to do all the other things that the government does? Sadly, and if I don't see plans for that, right? Texas doesn't have an income tax either, so what are they going to raise sales taxes? Then it's a question of what taxes are better, what taxes are worse from an economic perspective and a rights perspective, and that's a tricky kind of discussion to have. But so I don't know if that's a post-collapse MAGA strategy. I don't know how universalizable that is. Texas has energy sector they can tax. It can tax certain businesses. Maybe it's running surpluses and it feels plush, but a lot of states use property taxes to fund education. As long as the state runs education, they need, how are they going to fund it if they don't fund it for property tax? So I don't know if it's really a strategy that they can implement. James, is Israel secretly arming the Iranian rebels? Did the courage and success of Operation Rising Lion make the downfall of Iran and radical Islam inevitable? I don't know if they're funding the Iranian rebels. I wouldn't be surprised if Israel's funding groups like the Kurds in northwest Iran, and maybe some other particular ethnic groups or organized militias that exist. It's quite possible they could be smuggling weapons in from Azerbaijan. Israel has a good relationship with Azerbaijan. They could be smuggling in weapons from Kurdistan. They have a good relation with the Kurds. It's possible. I don't know how much of that is getting into the cities, though. Certainly Tehran. As I said, I think the 12-day war set the stage for this. I think it's certainly, made it much easier. I don't believe in it, and in historic inevitability. Choices have to be made, but it made it much easier to make the choice once Israel did what it did in the 12-Day War. It reduced the number of soldiers that could be brought out the streets to press this. It eliminated the ability to bring in very large contingents of Arabs from places like Lebanon and Syria by eviscerating Hezbollah, and it showed how weak the regime really was, and all of that I think inspired what's happening right now. Andrew, is altruism connected with the number 0? That's a weird question. If one's purpose for sacrifice is to be moral, and being moral is a value, then one gained a value from a sacrifice. Then one gains a value from a sacrifice, which is banned. It's a logical vacuum with no y at the base. I lost you. So it's certainly not the number 0. The number 0 means something else, I think. You're talking about a vacuum, which is not 0. It's not the same thing. If one's purpose for sacrifice is to be moral, and being moral is a value, then one gained a value from the sacrifice, which is banned. Yeah, it's a logical vacuum with no... Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of these internal contradictions to altruism. It's inevitable. It is inevitable, but they still hold that you're doing what is moral. Morality is a duty. It's your duty to do it. You don't gain. You might gain from it, but you can't use the fact that you gain from it as a motivation. You just have to do it. And Christianity doesn't say, for example, you can't gain values. You can't. You just have to gain. You can only gain them by rejecting other values, and by rejecting your life, by rejecting your personal values, the values that are important to you. So as long as you're sacrificing for the sake of a value as decreed by a power above you, as a duty, a categorical imperative, a God's commandment, something like that, then it's okay to attain that value. What you have to give up are your personal values. So it's a value decreed onto you. It's not a value from an objectivist perspective as that which one acts to gain or keep that promotes human life. That's a positive value. These are just values that are decreed. Those are okay for you to attain, and that's not good for you. YHL. Hopefully that's satisfactory answer. Hi, Iran. I was talking with a coworker the other day about government taxation. He advocated for a return to 94 taxes on the top 1%, like in World War II. Your thoughts? Well, I mean, it's evil. It's downright evil to take somebody's 94% of somebody's money. To the extent that they're serious, it's downright evil. It's awful to take 50% of somebody's money. To take 94% of the dollar that I earned right now. It's just unthinkable how, I mean, it's not yours. It's not yours. It's mine. You can't just steal my stuff. And that's outright, unequivocal theft at 94%. It's absolutely horrific. Now, the reason they could get away with it in World War II and in the 1950s is because nobody paid 94%. There were so many deductions, exclusions, and all of that, that the effective tax rate, the tax rate you actually paid if you were rich back then, was not higher than it is today. As many exclusions and deductions and loopholes are today, there were 100 times more back then. So nobody actually paid 94%. If they did, they'd stop working. Nobody is going to work to get 6% of the value of their labor. Why would they do that? Rather stay home. James, how does Iran and Venezuela regimes losing power impact the U.S. in the short term and long term? Do we really need Greenland, or do we really need Canada? Canada has substantial resources not used. Well, I mean, I don't know what need means in this concept. We don't have a right to any of this. And we don't have, and what does it mean to need it? We can trade for it. Anything Greenland has, we can trade for. We don't need Greenland for our security. They're already a member of NATO. They already are responsible for securing the Western Hemisphere up there. The United States already has military bases in Greenland. There's no, but what is the context of need? What's the context that makes need relevant or an issue? What does America, qua America, need? Nothing. Protect the individual rights of its citizens. That's it. There's no national need. And need doesn't justify anything. If you as an individual need something, you have to work to gain it. You can't just take it. It's not yours. All you have to do is trade with Canada. And if Canada doesn't develop its natural resources, it's the people of Canada's natural resources, not mine or yours. Now, you know, Canada should be private property, but neither is America. So we're not in a position to lecture Canada about private property. And then what? Iran, Venezuela regimes losing power. I've already talked about that. I've talked about Iran and how important that is and how it affects the U.S. short-term and long-term. It's a huge boon to the U.S. both short-term and long-term. In Venezuela, if you actually have the regime lose power and you actually have an opposition take over that is pro-America, pro-Western, and liberates the economy and lives of Venezuelans, then it's massive not only does increases the oil supply in the world, it provides us with massive leverage over China because the West, in a sense, controls most of the oil reserves. I've covered all this at the beginning of the show, so all of that I've already said, James. So I've already answered the question. Lucinda says, I just woke up. Hope everyone had a good day. And everyone remember to send plenty super chats and questions. Also remember that anyone can send stickers. Thank you, Lucinda. Really appreciate the pitch. And Lucinda, you just woke up. It's late in Germany. So, I don't know. She wakes up at night. I guess she's a night owl. Lucinda also writes for $20. Thank you, Lucinda. €20. What really made me dislike religion as a kid was actually mainly the ethics. Seems strange to me that people were so attached to that. I became an atheist when I realized it was impossible to truly live on Christian morality. That's a huge achievement because that rarely occurs to people because the ethics has been so secularized that it's not even anymore associated with Christianity. It's just associated with this is the ethics we have. The only alternative is presented as some kind of nihilism or some kind of immorality or a kind of predatory selfishness, we'll call it. Being predatory is the only alternative to be altruistic. So that's quite an achievement. I mean, to me, religion just didn't make any sense. It's just the stories didn't make sense. The whole concept of God didn't make sense. And this is silly. And just moved on from it. I think I was 6 or 7 when that occurred to me. All right, guys. Thank you. Another great day for Super Chats. So I really, really appreciate that. We're going 2.5, 3 hours every show now. That is cool. But thank you. Thank you to all the people who participate. Super Chats, stickers. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Don't forget to support the show on Patreon. Patreon.com. And just put it Yaron Brook Show and become a monthly supporter. Very ambitious when it comes to Patreon for this next year, for 2026. Got to get those numbers up. Thank you, guys. See you all tomorrow. Same time, same place. And more news. Bye, everybody.